controller ordered him to pull up and go around. Mateus Gaffney of the Bay Area News Group broke the story on the July 7 incident.
The FAA has said that it was a visual approach, so he was using his hands, right, manually going to land the plane, and it was great weather. There was no weather issues. Someone told us it was a pretty basic thing for most pilots to do. What differs on a situation like that is it depends on the airline if it's mandatory or not that you also have the electronic guidance equipment on at the same time.
Gaffney says aviation experts he's talked to were surprised by how close the pilot came to a disastrous collision. There were 4 planes full of passengers on the taxiway that the Air Canada flight just missed. I'm Brian Watt, KQED News.
Support comes from Stanford Healthcare, where every day Stanford medicine doctors provide innovative treatments and advanced patient care. Support for NPR comes from LegalZoom.com, providing legal answers to the day-to-day questions of small business owners through its network of independent attorneys, available nationwide. More information at LegalZoom.com/NPR. By FJC, a foundation of donor-advised funds working to maximize the impact of charitable giving and to create customized philanthropic solutions. Learn more at fjc.org. And by the listeners of KQED. Back to Morning Edition now. It's 6:33.
It's Morning Edition from NPR News. I'm Steve Inskeep.
And I'm David Green. Hospitals and pharmacies are required to throw away drugs that have passed their expiration date, no matter how expensive or vital those drugs may be. But the Food and Drug Administration and others have long known that many drugs remain safe and potent long after they've expired. Investigative reporter Marshall Allen of the nonprofit newsroom ProPublica has been looking into this as part of a series on medical waste, and he joins me from Denver. Marshall, good morning.
Good morning.
So can I start with a story in your report that was just completely fascinating? It's a pharmacist who found a box of old prescription drugs that were 3 or 4 decades old. What was the situation here?
Yeah, these drugs were stashed in the back of a pharmacy and discovered after they had been in basically a back closet for decades. I mean, these were like Elvis-era drugs almost.
That's amazing.
So he got curious and he contacted a researcher to say, let's test these drugs and see how potent they actually are. There were 14 different compounds in those drugs, and 12 of them were still potent up to current standards. And so that's many decades old, and the drugs were still potent.
Does that mean that it is safe for me to keep my drugs as long as I want to and try to take them and see if they work?
You know, no one's going to recommend that people take expired drugs. But I called different poison control experts to ask about it, and they do not have recorded cases of people being harmed by taking expired drugs. But they may not be potent enough to do what you need them to do, and so that could be a problem.
Are there some types of drugs, Marshall, where expiration dates are really crucial because drugs that, seem especially to lose their potency?
Absolutely. Especially things like inhalants or solutions might not be as potent and might not keep their potency as long. Just because some drugs are having their expiration dates extended does not mean that every drug can safely have its expiration date extended.
So who is benefiting from having these laws in place that are so strict and saying you have to throw these things away at a certain time?
Well, the experts I talked to, many of them said the drug industry benefits just because they continue to sell more new drugs. And,
I see.
The industry, when I talked to them, they said that they're most focused on the safety of the drugs, and what the expiration date actually means is that they've tested the drug and they've made sure that it's safe and effective up to that date. But that does not mean that it's bad after that date. And so that's why so many of these drugs get thrown away.
So the industry could, in theory, test the drugs to see if it could last 5 or 6 years instead of 1 or 2 years, but they might not have any incentive to do that because they make a lot of money by selling new drugs.
Well, exactly. They have no incentive to do it. They're not required to do it, and so they don't. I contacted some of the biggest pharmaceutical companies, and they said they don't check their drugs to see how long they actually last. And they said there's no incentive for them to do it also because it's a huge regulatory burden for them to actually extend the expiration dates. So when they get the initial approval for the drug, it's for 2 or 3 years expiration date, and they said to extend it